How do we produce a better cotton fabric without all the heavy chemicals? Our guest today is Graham Stewart, and he is an international textile and apparel production fiber to brand specialist working with world-class organizations. And for the past 2 years, Graham has developed and patented a more sustainable process to bleach and dye cotton. And we're going to talk about that here today. His company, Fiber 52, uses natural products instead of heavy chemicals. And they can do it at lower temperatures with less energy, less water, and less processing time. And so really good all the way around. And so today we're going to talk about how he came up with that solution, what he's learned during the process of development and bringing it to market, and what their vision is for the future. So we're excited to have him here. Graham, welcome to the Leaders of Transformation.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for inviting me on your pod, and thanks for the kind introduction.
My pleasure. And before we go any further, I do want to do a shout out to Kitcaster. Their team has been amazing. They send us amazing guests. And so thank you to them. And I just so appreciate all the booking agents that send us amazing guests, and they help to support this show and make this show amazing. And also for those of you that are listening and are watching, of course, the reason why we do the show is for you, and hopefully you benefit from this and learn something and are inspired to be the leader of transformation that you're capable of being, which is why I'm going to ask Graham to share a little bit about his experience, because maybe you have an experience where you want to bring a product to market, or you have already brought a product to market and you want to be able to scale it, and you can learn from other people. And so we'd love to hear his experience and what you can learn to help you on your journey. So Graham, talk to us about this solution. First of all, how did you come up with it?
Yeah, thanks. I was dyeing my own fabrics in that the reason I came to the US was that to start a brand with some other partners, and again, a sustainable brand. So I was involved right from the fiber through to the finished branded product. So, my background in life started life as a dyer. My degree is in coloration and chemistry, but spent a lot of time in marketing, sales, branding around the world. But one thing that's been constant in my life is I didn't ever get away from dyeing. And in this case, the fabrics I was dyeing were, one, difficult to dye. And so the dye houses pretty much said, you can do these yourself. What I noticed is in doing that, I was spending a lot of time in dye houses over the past 10 years. And what I did notice is that things hadn't changed a lot over the past 3-4 decades, in that basically the recipes that were being used pretty much look the same as they did 40 years ago. And in cotton, that involves using very heavy chemicals, very heavy alkali. And, I thought there's got to be a way of getting that alkali out of the process. And in doing that, I really started to play with bioproducts and pretty much food-based enzymes, which act as catalysts. So really, the guys who produce catalysts and bio-based products are really very interested in the food industry, but not so interested in textiles. And so it was good to adapt those pure products into the textile industry. So a big difference. So that's how it got going.
So those clothes that are behind you, for those of our listeners and viewers that are watching, so those are your products. So what's different about them from a consumer standpoint? Yeah, like how would we?
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, I think what's interesting to begin with is just the amount of pressure that's on retailers and brands to educate consumers as to where your product actually came from. And now that whole process is really gathering steam. It's really gathering force and good direction. I mean, for us, the timing's great in that brands really and manufacturers really want to tell consumers the story about, where it's coming from, particularly if they are using these newer sustainable ways of producing apparel. And so, that story's getting told. And I think that will only increase as legislation increases. We see it very much happening in Europe and, of course, in America too. The Europeans have been out there for a long time, particularly in Scandinavia as well, not just Europe. In those regions, they do walk the talk. That's not to say our acceptance has been any quicker, but with the legislation that's happening, we've been invited pretty much by legislation to do a life cycle analysis, for instance, where we had to do a life cycle analysis just to prove to everybody that this is more sustainable. Yes, we do use lower temperatures, we do use less energy, we do use less water, and overall the times are much shorter. But to answer your question, as far as the apparel is concerned, in doing that, we actually leave cotton in its natural state. Whereas when you hit it with heavy alkali, from the first minute, you're degrading the cellulose that's in cotton, and therefore it's a weaker product. It's not as soft. So, for instance, we leave the natural waxes in there, so you've got this beautiful soft cotton, which isn't the case. I mean, with the heavy alkali, you're more or less turning it into paper, So basically, we're avoiding all that. We don't have to put softeners on there, which again is a big cost. So, for the manufacturers, that's also a big deal, because softeners are one of the most expensive parts of fabric production. We don't have to put lubricants in there and so on and so forth. So we save a lot of product, and therefore in this whole process, we're not just more sustainable, but we're very cost effective too.
So what have you experienced has been the biggest challenge that you faced in even bringing this to market? Because even though there's a lot of talk about sustainability, there's also companies who are saying, yeah, well, we also have a budget and we've got a bottom line to consider. And so we want to use the cheapest, the fastest, and whatever, so we can get it to market. Now, I know that's changing, and we still have a long way to go with that.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was initially the resistance by manufacturers to change, particularly off the back of a pandemic. I mean, we're actually in the pandemic when we started all this. We began to approach manufacturers around the world. And that was tough to begin with, because there was that resistance. And, well, why do we need this right now? Times are not the best. And we really pivoted to brands and appealed to the brands who were, as we've just discussed, were coming under all this pressure with ESG, and with the issues of consumer sustainability and telling that story. The timing was great. That's how we overcame the issue, and that the brands and retailers were, there with open arms, and very much welcomed us as a new process to provide better cotton in a sustainable manner.
So now when you come up with an idea, there's the idea itself, you're the inventor, you say, okay, this is a better way to do this, or we're going to make a widget, or in this case, it's really the process that is your product, right? In terms of how to do it. And then there's running the business. And so a lot of times the technician, the person who is actually coming up with the idea or knows how to do it, isn't necessarily somebody that is more entrepreneurial and wants to build that business and so forth. How do you marry the two of those? Because you are the one who came up with the process itself, and you are the one who is running the business. How do you do that, and how do you utilize your team in the process to be able to support you in that?
Yeah, great question. I was very fortunate in that I met a company, a technology company from Houston, Texas. They're in the energy space. Very advanced company, and the CEO and his team are very much into this kind of science. And so in doing this by myself would have taken a lot longer. Look, to explain one big thing there is that my patents got granted only last week. So we've been patent pending actually until this point, which is something that's an issue because you're always worried that somebody's going to go against your patent, and then you've got a lot of pending patent. You've got a lot of proving to do. With a good partner, I was able to really have the funds, because in patenting around the world, look, everybody should know there's an enormous expense in that. You can do it. I mean, I've done it in the past and I've bootstrapped it, but it's taken longer. Whereas in this case, we've been able to move along with everybody else, with the manufacturers, the brands, prove things out and have the patents. Because again, these patents are important for the manufacturers, they're important for the brands, not just us. And so everybody gets protected. And, when we license this technology, the patents stand behind it. So for me, to be honest, the other part of my good luck is that Energy Yoga take a lot of the administration off my plate. So for the first time in my life, I'm allowed to think. And, it's a big part of our company in that they say to me, just think about this, make sure, look at the next steps. Where are we going to go? Where's Fiber 53, for instance? It's the next steps are important because, as we scale up now, we're starting to look at what else can we do? And there's a lot of opportunity out there. As other, as better dye stuffs are manufactured, better fibers, new cellulosics, which we all wear. They're about now, but they get better and better and more sustainable. And therefore, I'm able to, sit back and think rather than getting into the weeds of running the business day to day. So I'm very fortunate from that standpoint, I have to say.
So scaling, you mentioned about scaling Fiber 53, like, for example, what's the next version of your company? So now with what you're doing, you're starting to build some traction, right? So that scalability is also in being able to support the demand that is coming, not just how you want to grow it, but actually the demand that's coming as well. So what would you say to, like, let's say entrepreneurs who are trying to scale, they're in a similar type of situation where, it's kind of like this, I want those big contracts, but that's also going to mean that we have to be able to supply it. How do you navigate that? Does that company help you with that, or is that something that you're involved in?
Yeah, I think for me and other people in my position, call us entrepreneurs if you will, but basically you've got to. For me, I had an objective, and probably 3-4 years ago, I realized that my objective was I had to get from A to Z, as it is, to make sure that I can get a process or processes that will deliver a better product that will be the most sustainable. And so that was my objective. And I think in sticking to that, of course, there are bends in the road. And sometimes you've got to go this way and that way. But I think having an objective and sticking with it is a really big part of that. But also finding good partners is the other big part of that. Having great suppliers. We're fortunate again in that we've found manufacturers of this kind of product around the world. There are not that many, but they're big. These are big guys. And so what we've found are the guys that can take that product and put it in smaller packages, for instance, so a manufacturer can use it depending on the size of the dye house and all the rest of it, but we're dealing with just dozens and dozens of those around the world. And we've found great partners to help us along with that and get the logistics in place, because as you say, scaling is the biggest challenge. It's a huge challenge, particularly as we're scaling across different continents. And again, we've been fortunate to find the right people. So we've gone from 2 of us last year to late 22 to 17 today, and more people joining. So, those people are spread out around the world. They're not all here in the US. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. So now, you've had somebody else ask you that as well, like what's the future? You've been doing this for a long time, and you talk about the potential going forward. So you're going to be around for a while working on this. What's the legacy that you want to leave ultimately?
Well, a cleaner industry. The industry as a whole gets a lot of bad press. There's no doubt about it. And some of it's very well earned. There's no question. Of course, there've been big improvements since I was younger. I grew up in an industrial town with the biggest dye manufacturer in the world, right at the end of my garden. And, we had 3 big dye manufacturers in the town. And the pollution was absolutely horrendous, I've got to say. That's changed a lot. It still happens, but it's changed a great deal. But let's face it, we've still a long, long way to go. So in just, changing this chemistry and changing the processes, we've still quite a road to run there, in that that's going to take another 3-4 years. But at the same time, as I said before, we'll even look at other fibers, but we're looking at what other dyestuffs are coming along. There's more natural dyestuffs. Even dyestuffs that are being made now from microbes, which is super interesting because that goes with our technology brilliantly, and our technology goes with that brilliantly. And even there, you've got governments getting behind it and putting grant money into it, and so there is money coming in from governments who really want to see this happen. And so there's a lot of, let's say, what I would call friendly chemistry out there, which is to be developed over the next decade or two. But it's happening, So to me, that's very exciting. And to be at, this point in my career, to be so excited, that something like this is happening is wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the process itself. And, you alluded to it, but like, what does it do that, how do you do it differently? You said less chemicals and all of that, but maybe unpack it, because I'm sure there's some that are listening that are thinking, okay, like, tell me how does it work?
One very important ingredient is hydrogen peroxide. Nothing wrong with hydrogen peroxide. We can all clean our teeth with it, so it's not going to do any damage. It's how we help the hydrogen peroxide get reacted naturally. So instead of using a heavy chemical to react it and destroy the cellulose in the cotton, basically we use catalysts to make the hydrogen peroxide react, to make it do its job with less. Actually, we can use less hydrogen peroxide than has been used before, because it all gets reacted. And therefore, it's very clean chemistry, because there is a reason for that, in that cotton has vegetable matter in it. So it has lignins, it has waxes, it has other vegetable matters which don't look nice or will actually stick in you like a pin. So you've got to get rid of all those. And that's, lovingly called getting rid of the trash in the industry. So that process has to happen with cotton. What I did is to make sure that happened with the least effect on the cotton and the least effect on the environment. And so pretty much what I'm doing is providing the conditions with bioproducts and with biocatalysts to get that hydrogen peroxide to work. And then at the end of it all, we've got a clean bath where we don't have to drop it or wash off and do all that kind of stuff, wasting, it actually is like 10,000 gallons or 10,000 liters, sorry, per 1,000 kilograms of fiber or fabric or yarn. So it's an enormous amount of water. And, when we get to what we do, then we enable the dyeing. And another big saving that we're finding, which we didn't expect, is that the most expensive part of your the coloration of your apparel, like particularly like what you're wearing today in a black sweater or a black tee, black dye stuff is super expensive because you have to put a large percentage on it. They're expensive to begin with. And so we're able to save, in most cases, between 10 and 20% of that dye stuff, which is the biggest cost. We didn't know that. And it's only just becoming evident to us now. And we realize that we can do that because we're not damaging the cotton. So there are more dye sites on the cotton for the dye to attract to. So it's good to use less dye stuff as well. But in getting colors, we do that. I mean, in my world, 30% of what we do is white anyway. 20% is black, and then every other color in between. So that's the way of the world. So white, navy, and black are the big colors around the world. And our chemistry works with everything there. And the reason I mentioned darker colors is that we also have a biodegradable product that we put in the final wash when we've dyed the black, for instance. And instead of having to wash off time after time after time, then this product actually deposits any unreacted dye stuff away from the fiber, and therefore you use much less water. It pays for itself. In fact, more than pays for itself, because it's actually a very cheap byproduct. And so with the money you save in less water, it easily pays for that part of the process.
So who is a good client for you? Like when you think about fiber, I mean, it could be for furniture, it could be clothing. We've been talking about clothing, but it could be for a lot of things. So who would be able to use this process of yours in their manufacturing plant?
Well, I can reflect on some very good partners who we're working with now in scale, in that they're not only brand partners, but they also own their own manufacturing. So it's very easy for us to work with them and calculate what the costs are, make the changes to the recipes, as they're used to doing this anyway. And, they can see the savings. And so they're very proactive with us. And we've a number of very big brands, and the largest in the world, which do on their own dyeing and processing. That helps a lot. And of course, then there are the independent dyers and finishers, manufacturers and processors who work with brands. The ones that are brand focused are much easier to work with, because at the end of the day, they wanted to please their client, and we're trying to help them do that. So those really, that categorizes who our best partners are, and that kind of covers 90% of what we're doing right now.
Right. So it's clothing, and it's also furniture. Is there anything else?
I mean, we now get into nonwovens, which
Okay.
are super interesting. It's a huge business around the world. So I don't know. I'm trying to think what's a good nonwoven, but things that like go into soundproofing, but also they go into what proofs your house. And there's been a lot of work done on that, because some of the materials that go into houses, for instance, are not doing you any good. So again, clean chemistry helps all that. But think about the nonwovens that go into diapers, for instance, for kids and babies and so on. We've gone away from using cotton cloths as we did in the past, now to this much more advanced situation, which the wide usage there for humans is incredible. It's a huge business. And again, we can bring this chemistry to that end use. Furnishings, again, very important, because we sit on them as we do now. So it's not just the apparel. There's so many different areas which we're finding where we didn't think about it. And who knows, the next fiber 52, 53, 54, whatever we're going to call it, could be something as simple as, the detergents that are used now in every day by consumers in the household. As you are doing, it's okay having beautifully produced sustainable clothing, and then you put a lot of detergent on it, or you put a lot of softeners on, which there are many around the world. We can see, again, a biofuture for that. So that's a big, big industry, probably bigger than the one we're in now, So there are just all these avenues opening up for us, and we can't wait to get at them. It's just having the bandwidth to do it.
I was just going to say, yeah, having the bandwidth, the team, and being able to scale, and yeah, the time. I mean, it takes time to do these things. So, yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. Well, exciting times for sure, Graham, and I appreciate you spending a few minutes to share with us a little bit about this and kind of casting the vision. I mean, this show is about leaders of transformation. It's about people who want to create an impact in the world, and sometimes, we overlook the obvious, that there's an opportunity, there's a potential right in front of us. And this is a good example, where it's like, it's right in front of you in the industry that you're already in. And there's huge potential there, and just see where that's now leading. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, thank you for that. And we'll make sure that your website, fiber52.com, of course, is going to be in the show notes, and links to reach out to you on LinkedIn and follow you there. And yeah, any final thoughts for our aspiring inventors and industry transformers?
Yeah, stay true to what you believe. It's a case of following the path and sticking with it best you can. As I said, there are twists and turns, but and again, I think, as I said before, try and find good partners. I think having good partners to help you through the journey is super important.
How do you know a good partner?
It's very difficult. You've got to trust. Again, I've had good and bad partners over the years. Initially, you trust everybody and go along, and then you've got to try to say, are these guys really right for me? Are they doing what I want to do? Are we going along the right path? And yeah, it's a good question. It's tough to find the right partners, but it's an important process. And as an entrepreneur, it's up to you. You've got to find that path. But thanks, Nicole. And by the way, yeah, please, anybody who wants to reach out, fiber52.com. We'll get back to anybody who reaches out to us. And also, that can be from a large brand who many have, contacted us on our web page, and big mills and small mills who have contacted us, and individuals who are just interested. So we're happy to get back to you and share the Fiber 52 story.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Graham. And yeah, as for partners, what I hear in that is staying true, because you mentioned about staying true to your mission and your brand and what you're about, and then finding partners who want to stay true to that too. I think that's really important. It's kind of baked into what you were just saying there, is finding the people that are going to support that. So yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you to those of you watching. Hope you've enjoyed this and that this has inspired you. And, there's more sustainable products that are going to be coming out there, whether it's clothing, whether it's furniture, whether it's diapers, possibly even detergents. And I mean, I know there's some out there, but it's coming, and it's exciting. This is an exciting time. So, if you have an idea and you don't know how to do it, find some good partners around you that can help you, support you in bringing your product to market. And if there's anything that we can do to help you with that, you can find us on leadersoftransformation.com. You can reach out to us there. Of course, we're on social as well. And we'd love to hear the ideas that you have and what you're working on, and how we can support you in becoming a leader of transformation. So I do believe that we all have those brilliant ideas and how we can make the world a better place for everyone. And we just need to act on them. We need to act on them. And I always say, leaders of transformation take action. So take action on something that you heard today. Maybe it's reevaluating your own process. Maybe it's looking at it and saying, okay, how, we've been doing this for this long, for decades. Is there a different way to do it? If we were to do it differently, how would we do it differently? And maybe even force yourself to look at it from the outside in, and see if there's a different way that you would do it, because you might actually just find something that's better. So we encourage you to do that. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Latest Transformation.